Hello everybody, and welcome back to my Country Sparkles channel. I'm Rachel, and today I'm going to be teaching you about freezing kohlrabi. Now, this is a kohlrabi. I don't know if you've ever eaten a kohlrabi before, but we didn't until about 10 years ago when we planted our first ones, and they are so good. We put them in stir fries, and we put them in a lot of hand fried rices and stuff like that. And anytime that I need more vegetables and something, I add it to that. I feel like they are a lot like, what's it called? Water chestnuts, but instead of like the gritty, kind of crunchy taste of the water chestnuts, it has the firmness of water chestnuts, but not that gritty texture. So we really love our kohlrabi. My son used to eat it just like an apple as a toddler. Like, that was weird, but he did. So these are kohlrabis. So they can vary in size. This, I feel like, is about this or this, about the sizes that you get from the store. This is our biggest one that we grew this year. This is the bigger of the store-bought ones. And this is our next biggest one. And it's even got purple in it, which is kind of fun. I don't know if it was just the variety of seed that did that or what, but that was really cool that they turned purple. After I washed my kohlrabi, I also decided to fill up my pot of water here. We are going to be blanching this kohlrabi, and it's going to be for a little bit longer, like probably around 7 minutes, because kohlrabi is a lot thicker. And when I take it out of the freezer and I put it into a mill, I like to be able to just saute it up a little bit until it gets the right amount of softness, but I don't like waiting like, half an hour to saute it up until it's soft and perfect for eating. So I have my water there. Oh, I need to turn it on. Turn it on and we'll get that boiling, and then it'll be all ready to put the vegetables in when we're done cutting. So let me start cutting this, and I will show you what they look like inside and kind of the different sizes of them. I figured I would do that, because especially if you've never eaten one before, that way you know what you're getting. So this is a pretty average size, and you see, let me come around, here we go. You see the difference? So this green, that is the outer skin, that's what you want to be cutting off. And all of this is the meat of the vegetable inside, and that is perfect for eating, and it looks like it's a perfect amount of texture. So, the perfect texture for eating. So, good size kohlrabi. But let's do this giant one. This is the biggest one I've ever picked. So this one might be pretty thick. I had some a few years ago that I let grow well into winter, and they were out there a long time. They weren't necessarily giant, but they were just kind of sitting there almost dormant for a while, and their outer skins got super thick, and so they were a little tougher. This one's a little tougher, but it's also really big. Come on. There we go. Ooh, okay, this is interesting. So, I'll bring this up for you to see. Okay, so as you can see, its outer skin is thicker. It's about twice the thickness, but it's not as thick and as bad as I've seen them be. Like when I let them just sit out there and they just kind of were dormant for a while, I've had skin like that thick that I've had to cut off. But this being up here, that's great. So this is not necessarily mold or anything like that. It looks bad, it does, and I won't eat this, I'll cut this off. But the rest of this is just fine to eat. So this happened because as it was growing, it got so big that the skin broke some, and so it just got exposed to air and other moisture that doesn't do good on the inside. So I'll just cut that away and it'll be just fine. It's not rotted, it's still firm, anything like that. There's nothing wrong with the vegetable. So keep that in mind as you are cutting things. Another thing about growing your own produce at home is you get blemishes. At the store, they pick out all the vegetables and fruit that don't look perfect. They pick them out and they throw it away. At home, you get what you get. It's not all going to be perfect tomatoes grow weird. Sometimes it has like 3 little round things on it. This one, it cracked open some moisture, and maybe dirt got in there and formed with the vegetable, and so I just have to cut it out. But it does not mean that the rest of this is bad. So there's that. So a little surprising, but also kind of not, because here, bring this closer. This side you can see better where it kind of split. See how it just kind of cracked a little bit? And it's no big deal. It just happens. Vegetables aren't perfect. Each one of them is different. Each one of them has its own, not personality, its own unique characteristics. I'll cut a super little one. I would have preferred to leave these longer, but since it was getting colder, I just didn't want it to freeze and just go bad. So this is perfect too. It has just enough to cut off, and I also get a little bit of meat from it. Okay, so I'm just gonna chop these up. We'll start with the little one. So to do that, let's see. Every time I cut them up, I kind of do a little bit different. There's no special way of doing this, so I just cut it like an apple, and I'm cutting the skins off. If it's too rough to just like slice through, then you're at the skin. You want to cut that off. And here's my little piece. And then I'll cut it into slices. And that is it. I have little triangles. And those will just go straight into the boiling water once that's all boiled and ready. And I'll cut up about a pan's worth before I throw it in there. And then I'll just boil them all together. This is a very firm vegetable, and just adds a different texture to stir fries, and I love it in stir fries, or like any Chinese foods that I'm making, like, you know, like broccoli beef, I'll add it to the broccoli. Sweet and sour chicken, I'll fry up some and throw it in there and put some sweet and sour sauce on it. It's so good, and it's just a perfect, little bit crunchier texture, but not like super firm and crunchy. Okay, I will cut these up and then I'll be right back. As I was cutting these up, the thought just came to me, it's like cutting the rind off of a watermelon. So that is an even better way to compare it instead of an apple, except it's firm inside like an apple, not all soft like a watermelon, but the outside is just like the rind of a watermelon. Okay, I'm back. So I've got kohlrabi boiling back there, and it's been boiling for about 5 or 6 minutes. What I like to do to test it to see if it's ready is I like to be able to poke it with a fork, and if it goes in with a little bit of resistance, then it's perfectly done. If it's like goes in super easy, then it's overdone, and if I can't poke it at all, then it is not done yet. So get my kohlrabi off the heat here, and we'll pour it into my salad strainer. I love using my salad strainer spinner for like everything. So it has a nice big strainer in here, and then it'll collect all the water also, which I can reuse, so I'm not wasting. So I've got me a nice big pan here, and I am just going to dump them straight into that pan. And then spreading them out will help them to cool faster, and I like to cool them off quite a bit before I put them in the freezer. So and just cooling them to room temperature is just fine. And then I've got my water. It's a little bit green from the color of the kohlrabi. Let's pour it back in there. I need some more water. There we go, and I'll start boiling that for the next batch, and while this other kohlrabi cools, and I'm just going to flatten this out so it's nice and even on here, and it will be cooled down in no time. So we'll come back when I'm done chopping and when these are all cooled. So now I've got my second batch of kohlrabi in there about to boil, so you want to bring it up to a boil before you start your timer for the blanching part. So it was boiling. I poured the kohlrabi in. Now I've got to wait for it to bring it back up, and then I will set the timer for about 6 minutes, and then those will be done cooking, and I'll test it with my fork, remember? So now what I'm going to do is put my cooled kohlrabi into Ziploc bags. So I have my Ziploc bags here. I have about 3 of them because that's how many I think I'll need. I marked them kohlrabi so I know what they are, and oh, that one I didn't. I put the year on some of them. I try to put the year on everything so I know what year went into the freezer, and then I can better use the old stuff before I use the new stuff, because oftentimes the new stuff just gets stacked in the front instead of rotated behind. So all you do, got my little bag supporter here, take my clean hands, and I load up my bags. So I like to, when I'm freezing things, I load the bags about halfway full. So that way they can lay nice and flat, and when I'm ready to use them, if I don't want to use a whole bag and I just want to break off some of it, then it's easy to do. If it's too thick and there's too much in there, you can't break off just a chunk to thaw out for your meal. Or if I'm not doing a whole meal for my family and I just want to make me some kohlrabi, fry up in a pan and put some cheese on top or something like that, then I like to break off just a chunk of that. And there it is. Fill up a bag, flatten it out. I lay it flat in the freezer to freeze, and then once it's frozen, I can stack it up in the freezer like that to use a lot less room. And that is how you freeze kohlrabi. And most things in the freezer will last at least a year, if not more. I have many things in the freezer that are like 3 years old. I have some peas in there that I froze about 3 years ago, and I just used them in a stir fry the other day. They had a little bit of ice on them, but they didn't even taste freezer burned or anything. That is the awesome thing about freezers, is they preserve things where they are, and they prevent molding and anything growing on them. As long as they stay frozen and your freezers don't defrost, then they are just fine. The worst that'll happen is it'll get freezer burned, and then it'll have that little bit of a bitter taste to it, which some things that are freezer burned, once they are cooked up, are just fine, and some things that are freezer burned, once they're cooked, you can tell just that stale taste they have on them. So definitely eat whatever you feel comfortable eating, but freezers are meant to preserve food and keep things fresh longer. So there you have it. Thank you for watching my video. I really appreciate it, and I appreciate your support. I love your comments below. I try to reply to all of them, and I love teaching you guys. And we will see you next time. Bye.